right. Let's get the screen up and everybody back. If I can remember how. There we are. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So I'd like to welcome everybody to a kind of a special episode because it's kind of on an off week since we've gone to our 2-week schedule. We realized lots of people back doing SCA stuff. And so we moved, as everybody knows, we moved our schedules to Wednesday nights every other week. But it leaves us a little bit more time to add some special episodes. And Sir Bari asked if he could do kind of a series around Melee, specifically how each kingdom kind of develops their culture and their fighters in Melee. And I thought it was a great idea, and I'm looking forward to his series and as he puts it together. Today we have Ansteorra and then Sir Martel. Martel, thank you very much.
Hello.
Everybody see he's in armor, so he's out of practice, and he's kind enough to make some time for us. So we appreciate that a great deal. And of course, we have Pellinor, Sir Pellinor back from Midrealm. He's kind of been on a show a lot. He does a lot of our Melee stuff, our episodes. And of course, we have Sir Bess, who's Melee first and pick up later or tournament later. But welcome back. And the best part is she's back walking around and smiling. So she is happy again after a long little layoff she had. So I am the producer tonight. And even though this is a near and dear subject to my heart, I am going to shut up and let some folks kind of run the show. And we're going to talk, see what everybody does for their kingdom around Melee. So I hope everybody has a great show. I'm going to throw it over to Bari here and look forward to wrapping it up at the end.
All right. Everybody likes rap.
Uh-oh.
That's not Bari.
All right, man. You know I'm much better looking.
Professional work here.
All right, awesome. Well, let's get started here as Brannos is trying. There we go. Awesome. Thanks everyone for being here. Yeah, we actually met with everyone knows Pellinor, who's done 20 episodes now or something like that. And of course, everyone's pretty familiar with Bess. Bess is my partner in crime. We're sort of sharing duties as the host here. And the main conversation is going to be with Pellinor, who represents, and he can give us the specifics on that, the Midrealm. Actually, Pellinor, what is your particular job in the Midrealm?
Right now, I am the Army General for the Midrealm. So I'm overall all of the war points for the Midrealm.
Okay, and then Sir Martel of Ansteorra. And what is your particular position in Ansteorra?
I am the current Kingdom General. So I got to direct the armies at Gulf War, and then I will again at Penzik.
All right, awesome.
And I'm also in charge of organizing regional commanders and regional practices. Okay,
awesome. That's really what I think we want to talk about here. But before we get into that, just to kind of get everybody up to speed, first of all, Midrealm, for those who don't know, and by the way, I didn't used to know the kingdoms at all until just a handful of years ago. I only knew the kingdom. So the Midrealm, you guys are, I always think of you as Ohio, but that's only because my wife lives in Pittsburgh. I know that's Ethelmark, and you're the next thing past Ethelmark. So it's Ohio. And then what other states do you cover?
We have Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and I think most of Kentucky, if not all of it.
Okay. And then Ansteorra is?
It's effectively Oklahoma and Texas.
Oh, you get Oklahoma as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, and since we're talking about it, Eldemir?
Ontario. Woohoo!
Ontario. Canada. And now, that's going to sound dumb. I'm assuming that's the Toronto part of Canada?
Yeah, that's the province or the state, as you would call them, that Toronto was in, Ontario.
Land of Jack Mongo.
So we established earlier that Bess is actually, she writes standard operating procedures and is a lumberjack, if you didn't know that.
We are multi-talented up here in Eldemir.
And since I'm on here, for those who don't know me, I'm from the East Kingdom. And so East Kingdom pretty much starts in Delaware, works its way up the East Coast. I like to say it's Delaware, Pennsylvania, the part that roots for the Eagles, not the Steelers, New Jersey, New York, the part that roots for the Giants and the Jets, not Buffalo Bills. Pretty much all of New England, and then we go to the Montreal part of Canada. Not to insult the rest of Canada. I don't know if Montreal is an insult or not. But
you're good. Quebec. I think you've got Montreal is in Quebec, so I think you've got all of Quebec.
Yes. We have the French Canadians. So very, very fun group of people. So anyway, all right. So that covers what everyone does, and then major wars. So Pellinor had pretty much mentioned Pennsic. And can you tell us a little bit about Pennsic? Why are you so special at Pennsic?
At Pennsic, I am in charge of all of the war points on the Midrealm side, or you could also say I'm in charge of all of one side of the armored fighting, all of one side of the rapier fighting. Of course, I have lieutenant generals that actually do all the planning and run those. I couldn't do it all. Those guys are great.
So, Pal, I'm just going to interject for a second, if you don't mind. You said you're in charge of the war points. What does that actually mean to be in charge?
Well, I should say I kind of look over all of them. We have lieutenant generals in charge of rapier, armored, thrown weapons, archery, target archery, ANS,
volunteering,
siege, and combat archery. Volunteers kind of run itself. I think that's everybody. I'll bet if I'm missing one, I apologize. But what I do is they run their areas, and then I will run interference if need be, or be the liaison with our king and queen, and anybody else at Pennsic that I need to help them with. If they run into a problem or need help with something, I'm the guy they come to. So it's kind of like being the, what would you call it? I don't want to say boss, but I'm that guy that oversees all of it.
You're the guy with the sign, "The buck stops here."
Yeah.
The executive decision maker.
I do a lot of talking to our allies, working with them, especially early on if there's anything they like to do. If I hear about it, then I go talk to whoever is the particular people. Like right now, our ANS general is looking at allied ANS participants, ANS champions, and I'm trying to get information for her, for people to talk to.
If I can interject real quick. So we had an episode last week on Pennsic War and what we should expect for Pennsic, and Pellinor was on there, along with Ryu, who is the warlord of the East Kingdom. And again, for anyone that doesn't know what Pennsic is, it is our largest and probably longest, right? It's this year's the 50th anniversary, 50th. I don't know. We're off by a couple of years now because of the pandemic, but it's certainly
Pennsic, although it doesn't track with the ANS years, but yeah.
Yes. Well,
Right.
Pennsic is now my age, which it's easy now to figure out which year it is. It used to be 2 years older than me, but I caught up. But anyway, yes. So Pennsic 50 is coming up, and it's the largest. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pellinor. I think we are getting around. Before the pandemic, it was like up to 1,500 fighters for heavy on the battlefield.
I think at one point we were at a higher number than what we are now.
Yeah.
We are probably about 1,200.
Okay.
Total.
Yeah, and I think before that it was like 2,000 or whatever. And then
Now, are we just talking armored?
Yeah, armored fighters, and
Okay.
then I know fencers have gotten a lot bigger than they have in the past. Yeah.
Yes.
And how many fencers are there?
There's about last year I think there were about 170 on a side.
Okay.
So,
And then and then the last piece I want to throw in there is that the Midrealm, of which Pellinor is the general of, is one of the principal kingdoms. So Pennsic is historically the Midrealm versus the East. So Pellinor would be one of those. And then we can throw it down to Martel. So what are the principal wars that you plan for? I think you said Gulf Wars and Pennsic.
My kingdom is a primary at Gulf War. We're one of those that gathers the allies that are opposed by Trimaris. Other than that, we don't officially muster for other wars, although a lot of us attend Lilies, a lot of us attend not Ansteorra anymore. It is the War of the Phoenix.
Right.
And then some of us go up to Battlemore, but Gulf War is our big focus.
And how many heavy fighters do you bring to Gulf Wars?
Again, pandemic has changed numbers around. Usually right around 100.
Okay. And Pelennor for Penzik, how many heavy does the Midrealm bring?
It's about 300. I think it's about 3 to Midrealm itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, just Midrealm.
About 250.
Okay. Yeah.
I
I know. The East is probably similar ballpark. So
yeah.
But yeah, so we're talking. I mean, even at 250 to 100, we're talking about sort of still similar large units that you have to draw from all over a pretty large kingdom, and you have to sort of get them all coordinated together. So with that, I guess my first question I'll throw out to you guys is, or the first plan question here is, like, what do you do to prepare for war? And with this, I'm thinking, are there internet sources that you use? Do you guys have meetings prepared? Do you run practices? Do you have any sort of kingdom standards you try to get all the fighters onto? If I could throw that one out to Martel at first.
We do have, our GOA rank is the Centurions of Ansteorra. And on that, we have a website for that. And on that, we have our warfighting protocol, which was written by Duke Kine back in the day. So we constantly refer people to that. But I don't expect heavy fighters to do a whole lot of reading. So we also have, we're divided into a central, southern, and then northern regional, which is now the new Principality of Ventime. And each one of those has a sub-commander who organizes their own practices and try to have at least one before every major war. And then we also have the Sable Soldier Project, which is a free event the Shiv of my kingdom put on, that the first half of the day is dedicated classes. Like you get to pick, like I'm going to be a shieldman in this war, there's a shield wall class. I'm going to be a commander, there's a commander's class, archery, archer class. And then we do the morning running through classes, which we do it like kind of like the college. So like there's 3 blocks of classes or 4 blocks of classes in the morning. And then the afternoon, we split up into melees to put those into practice.
Are they in armor for the classes? Are they in armor for the classes?
It depends on the class. Like
okay.
the commander's class is not necessary. When we're doing here's how you take a fixed position, and here's how you hold a fixed position. We're going to need shields and helmets for that. Otherwise, you have broken noses.
Mm-hmm.
But it just depends on the class. And then, so I got to run it this year, and we ran from like a very wide field down to a very condensed field to simulate the different kinds of battles we have at war.
So, go ahead, Bess.
Well, I'm really curious about this this command school, for example. Sir Pelennor is my friend, and I tend to call him Pelly. So Sir Pelennor, I apologize if I call you or reference you as Pelly.
It's okay.
Pelennor was the Midrealm general a few years back, and I kind of just followed him around one day, and I was like, and he was going to meetings and taking notes, and I'm like, well, Pel, how do you know what to do? Like, so I like this idea that you have of a commander's class. Can you tell us a little bit about what you discuss and?
Sure. I mean, it's an hour-long class, so I'll try and sum it up pretty quick. So in every soldier in the kingdom should know the basic formations, the basic commands, and the basic tactics. The commander's class is where we teach how and when to use those to achieve victory, and also like specific tips on how to look at the rules of a set battle. Like if the battle is to take a specific point, I don't care how many enemies we kill or how many guys we lose, as long as we get said point. And so we do stop and talk a little bit about how to game the rules a little bit to be unfair to our opponents.
Victory conditions are an important thing to know about.
One of the things I say is that if they have to change a rule about you because of your tactics, you win.
Especially if you get it named after you. By the way, I have a question, but I want to address the Pelly comment earlier. The first time I had heard that, so Pellinor and I had been together. I think it was the spear video we did last summer, which I have like a whole series of spear videos on YouTube, and I basically begged Brannos to get me onto that, and that's kind of how I made this whole connection with this group right here. Much like Martel, you're sort of here because of the last video I think you did pretty well with. So anyway, we go to Penzik. I ran into Bess briefly in the town battle, waved to her like during a hold or something. We were directly across from each other, and then I sent a bunch of people to push her. I couldn't believe you were like charging into a building with you're like what, 4'10" or something.
I'm very
but anyway,
by heart.
Yes. So anyway, one of the field battles, unfortunately, a friend of mine blew out his ACL, which caused a general hold, which I used the opportunity to go track down Pellinor. I started asking people in Darkman, it was like, hey, is Pellinor in your group? And I heard people start yelling, Pelly. So that's where I know Pelly is the nickname. So that's where we actually officially met in person.
Yeah.
So to the question. Oh, go ahead.
One other thing that it's not technically in my kingdom that we use to train is our principal allies is the Kingdom of Callantir. And every February, they hold their Winter War Maneuvers, which is their version of the Sable Soldier Project. And we all travel up there, about 70 of us, to be the op force for their kingdom.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
That is very nice. So question for you then. Before we get on to the mid, I guess, maybe the mid can ask the same question here. But if I was let's say I was a GOA, which for anyone who doesn't know, that's Grant level of arms, which is typically the heavy award just below the chivalry level. That's the one that's below that. So it's pretty high level distinguished award. It's usually like the people that are really involved and have been doing it for a while. And also your future knights is hopefully what you're trying to get out of that. So anyway, if I was one of those, and let's say I lived near Dallas or Austin or like one of your major population areas, and I was willing to drive 4 hours, and I wanted to do everything that was going to get me ready for war in the course of a calendar year, how many things could I go to? Do you just do, you said one per major event, or you do the monthly, or?
Well, if you're talking just the melee things, there's probably going to be 3 or 4 regional practices, Winter War Maneuvers. We also have a couple internal kingdom wars. Like we have there's a down in the Barony of Border March, they have a pretty nice castle built.
Oh, nice.
With 3-story archery towers. I hear that Glen Aubyn's going to copy some of that for the Gulfport Castle. But our calendar's pretty darn full. In my mind, we could lose some tournaments and have more melees, but that's but there's quite a few.
So would you say Ansteorra then is a melee kingdom, or are you a tourney, or are you kind of half and half? How does it work?
I am trying to push it towards a melee kingdom, away from the idea of the army of heroes. There is definitely some regional biases towards that. Like up north, we have a strong bias towards making units and fighting in units with matching garb and matching shields. And also in our coastal area, there's some of that in Gringalad and whatnot. There's some really strong shield walls. Recently, like within the last 2 years, 2 years, COVID, whatever, the Dallas area has put together a good shield wall. That is the Steps War Company is what they call themselves. Or Steps War Band.
Nice, very interesting.
So I don't know weather down in Oklahoma or Texas at all. I think you can be outdoors doing melees and stuff for most of the year, right? Like, do you get a lot of snow down there?
It's not the snow that stops us. It's the triple-digit heat in the summer.
Yeah.
Not that we actually stop, but we probably should.
Yeah. It's funny. I've noticed.
Stop.
I've noticed in our regional practices, and it's one of the things that I've been pushing for all the people that run the practices is it doesn't get as hot as it does in Texas, but we do get heat and humidity up here. And our practices, we get a whole lot less fighting in June and July than we do in April, just because the heat and the humidity just really beats down on us. And this is the point that I want to get to Pellinor about for the same questions that you answered. But I just want to add that, like, one of the things I'm big on in our melee practices, I'm really pushing on efficiency, trying to get, like, once the armor goes on, the clock starts ticking. And the hotter and more humid it is, the faster that clock ticks. So once you get them in armor, you have to get them fighting. And all the talking and stuff you have to do when they're getting water or before and after they have the armor on.
Yeah.
Because we've had some practices go, in my opinion, pretty poorly because we're chatty. We're geeks. We're all geeks. And we will talk to death about anything. I mean, my God, we've got a podcast so we can talk to death every week now.
Jarl Owen, who taught me a whole lot of my melee stuff, he always says, anytime you do a regional practice, first thing you do is split them down the middle and do a field battle, because you don't have to talk about it. And then and then after that, when they're all tired and talking and gasping for water, then you can discuss things.
Yeah. And we've also learned we have a group of trees. And post pandemic, I think after the 2 years, the leadership is usually sort of a gradual change, but that pandemic sort of made a very sudden change and people forgot about things. And it took us a few practices for people to go, why are we talking in the sun? Like, there's shade over there. So we're learning little things like that. So anyway, on to Pellinor. So the same questions to you. So how do you organize your practices? How do you use internet resources? Do you have meetings? And by the way, since we are mortal enemies and we'll be meeting in August, I will give you our answers as well. I'm not going to just suck all this information out of you.
There's no.
Oh yeah, should be taking notes.
There's no secret thing. It's pretty much I've got a lieutenant general for armored and the same for rapier, and then they have regionals. We have each state in our area, so we have 5 regions. So we have 5 regionals, and we like to have them have at least 1 or maybe 2 practices during the summer, trying not to overlap with another region, or if they do overlap with another region, maybe work with them to have the same practice. So generally the summer is fairly full of melees. June and July, May, the weather is a lot nicer. But we do have, there's an event called Val Day. They have an indoor site that's big enough that we can do larger melees. We have a Winter War Maneuvers that has an indoor site that's in March. When we have some melees going on there. So it's really nice when we can do that. So then we do the regionals, and then there's a few wars that we get to, like Ethelmark War. It's not really a war, but Ethelmark War practice. If we can get people out there, we can do some nice stuff there. We've got a war with North Shield called it used to be called Border Skirmish. I think it's called Skirmish at the Border this year. That our western part of the kingdom can get to, and that's a lot of fun up there. I'll be going to that this year. And then we have some events that are generally larger events that we can bring some people from the different regions to, and watch them and do some work against them. And a couple of them, we actually get out of kingdom people. We'll get a unit of out of kingdom people coming and working with us too. So that's some good practice.
So Pellinor, the GOP, the Grant of Arms level that Ansteorra has, they do work, and they have a website that they can or cannot reference if you don't want them to read too much. I know that Middle Kingdom has the Red Company, which is is that a grant level, or it's a fighting level? It's a fighting award. I know that, or order.
There's Red Company, and then there's Gold Mace, which is the next step up.
Okay. And do they have something similar to what Ansteorra has?
The Sable, is that Sable Project? Is that right?
The Sable
Soldier Project.
Okay. And that's where you have practice or classes and stuff, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. We have within the kingdom, there's Royal University of the Midrealm, which generally that's classes about any subject. But then there's also a version of that we use it's Martial Realm, Marshall Royal University of Midrealm, and then that will have classes just like you will. It can be on command, it can be on shield work, it can be on spear work, and not only for armored, but there's also classes for rapier, and there's classes for the people will put on how to support your kingdom if you're a non-fighter. Basically, anything with supporting fighting or fighting, there might be classes there for that. And just like you, it's in blocks or in certain tracks. That helps a lot.
Cool. Thanks.
So same question I had for Martel. Let's say if I live near Cleveland or Cincinnati or Indianapolis, I'm willing to drive 4 hours or so, and I'm dedicated and I really want to be a melee specialist and I want to get ready for Penzik and whatever else. Like how many events do you think I could go to? Events/practices, within sort of 4 or 5 hour range in a year.
For melee, right?
Yes, for melee.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, at least 7 or 8 at least.
Okay.
I mean, there's 2 in July that you could go to. There's 3 in June this year. I'm surprised there's not one on that one weekend. There's at least 2 in May, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 there, and then a couple of them early in the year. So there's quite a bit of chance to get to.
Okay. Yeah, out here I was going to give my own contribution here. So out here in the East, we have we effectively have 2 regions. I mean, technically, I think it's broken up into 4, but in terms of our main melee practices, we have our southern region practices in central New Jersey, very accessible to New York City, but also very accessible to Philadelphia and even Delaware. I mean, Delaware, I think, is like an hour and a half drive. And then we have another one that's in the Boston area. So I don't know how well people know the East Coast cities, but you pretty much have Philadelphia. Which way do I need to go here? You pretty much have Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, and then I think Montreal will be the next major city up from there. And I don't know what Montreal necessarily has going on, but like I said, the Boston area has a monthly practice that is year-round. Now, certain parts of the year, they might get 30 fighters, and certain parts of the year, they might get 6. But it is a monthly melee practice. And they have an indoor site. And then in New Jersey, we have a monthly practice. We start in April. We go all the way through October. And then in November, we have, if you've heard of it, we have 100 Minutes War, which is basically an event. We're off for December. And then we just secured an indoor site for January, February, and March. But that's a little further north into New York State. And to quote one of my local practice partners who's from Ethelmark, someone asked him, he was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And like, "What are you doing right now?" He's like, "Oh, I'm going to a melee practice." He's like, "Why?" He's like, "Because the East is freaking crazy." He's like, "Penzic's not till August, and we had a really good practice. I mean, it was intense." And same thing, we have a handful of melee events. I would say if you are in the southern region, I think we might be able to get to 10 or 12 in a year within like 3 hours with some of our events. And then, God, if you're near Boston, maybe even more than that, there's a whole lot of, if you have to just look on the East Kingdom calendar of events, and there's a whole lot of melee events in the summertime. In terms of other sources we use, we've done some internet meetings. I usually do like a blog after every practice I go to, just to share out to the world all the secrets that that I'm not very good at keeping.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. You're welcome. One of the guys in my mercenary house, when I started that, was like, "Why are you giving away all of our secrets?" It's like, first of all, they're my secrets. So anyway, so one question I have about how you guys organize practices. So let's say, okay, so in the East, I would say we have events. So we have, for example, we have Southern Region War Camp, and then we have Northern Region War Camp. So these are the bigger events. And I know Martel talked about the one where you have the classes in the morning, and then you have the sort of melees in the afternoon. I know our war camps they're events. You know, you can pre-register in advance. There's going to be a troll. There's going to be all the official stuff you have to do. Usually we get hay bales for those things, which we don't have for all of our practices. And typically with those, I have never been involved in any of those. But typically from what I've observed, I mean, I've gone to them. I just haven't been involved in organizing or anything. Typically from what I've observed, there's usually a couple scenarios. We'll do some field battles, we'll do some bridge battles. And then if there's something specific. So for example, this year, you know, 10-minute bridge battles with unlimited resurrection. And then the last 5 minutes is going to be, you know, 1 death and you're out. I wouldn't be surprised if we have something that pretty much mimics that. And then who knows, they may have something that mimics I know the one year we had the bomb scenario where you had to like carry a bomb into a gate and blow it up. We mimic something like that. But the question is for the smaller practices, let's say you get a practice of like 20 to 30 people. I mean, I'm assuming you guys do stuff like that, like some sort of, you know, practice with like, so Martel, so if you have like 20 to 30 to 40 people, you know, a little smaller, a little bigger, how does that work? Like how much planning do you do ahead of time? Do people show up on time? Do you know who's going to be in charge of the practice, or is it kind of whoever shows up and decides to sort of take things over? How does that work?
Well, typically, a melee practice is run by a regional commander. So, like, I try to make it to all of them, but I'm there strictly in an advisory capacity, and the regional commander runs the practice themselves. And we've got some good ideas and some good drills that we do. And it really depends on the number of people. Like, not that we do this at a regional practice, I do it at a local practice, but the smallest melee drill I do requires only 3 people. Mm-hmm. And then, but there's not to get into too much of the nitty gritty. In my mind, there's 2 types of melee battles, large scale and small scale. And small scale battles are typified by lots of flanking, aggression, and a lot of movement. And the large scale battles are typified by much stronger frontline attacks. And so we want to simulate both in a local practice. And we'll do that by limiting the front. Like, we'll definitely do some open field battles where we run around and it gets, you know, a little, the lines get blurred a lot, and it is a true melee. But we will also always do a limited front, even sometimes even just a bridge battle, because that's all you can do to make it, to make the lines not where it's just the best thing to do to flank.
Do you have, when you, all right, so let's, so you have a practice. Let's say you're going to do field battles.
Okay.
So you're going to pick sides. Okay. And I'm assuming there's probably lots of points to pick sides. You can have like, get in your normal units and we'll split up sides, probably normally going to be even numbers. Sometimes we've done it. I've done it before, particularly for really, short for time. I'll say, okay, if your birthday is an odd number, this side. If your birthday is an even number, this side. And sometimes we'll keep them the same way all day. And I'm assuming everyone here is on the same page where if one side is getting slaughtered by the other side, we'll shuffle some things up to make that not happen anymore.
We often do what's called a ditch battle. It's a battle game we took from Amtgard, but it's a typical field battle. But the first person to die on the winning side will switch teams.
Oh, nice.
So it automatically equalizes. Now, you do eventually get to sometimes when you got 15 or so fighters, you'll get to where it's like 3 dukes on one side versus 13, which is its own kind of fun.
Right.
But if you just want to have a good day of battles, that gimmick is a good one.
That's interesting. I like that. I see. Brannos is taking notes somewhere off in the ether, so hopefully he wrote that one down. No, that's pretty interesting. I know that we had a battle recently. This year, what we're working on is surviving chaos. And last year I was a lieutenant commander. This year I'm only in the command structure in that I'm on one of the planning teams. In fact, Pellinor talked. I'm specifically on the bridge battle planning team, so Pellinor talked about this, and I talked about this before. We're like, oh, we should do a bridge battle episode. Is like, okay, after Pensic though.
Yep.
Can't do it after Pensic. Can't tell you anything about what we're gonna do before Pensic. But anyway, so yeah, this one we had. It was an interesting. Actually, I'm supposed to be all sneaky and type this in the chat. Brannos, if you're listening, can you pull up the blog I sent you, the Tactical Fighter, if you have that link?
You posted it earlier.
Yeah, I sent it earlier. Sorry.
Hey, while you're looking, we have a fight that we've done before where we're mixing from one side to the other, kind of like Martel did, where if you die, you go to the other side of the bridge. Or we've done that with a 3-bridge setup where it's three bridges come into one spot. So if you die, you index to the right. So everybody's moving around, and what that does, it makes people learn to fight with different people all the time, and
That's
working on communications.
So one of the things I'm curious about, you're talking about regional commanders, and so because I've never been in the command structure, I'm always so curious about how it gets going. I know, Pelly, you've got in the mid, there's the martial rum, and Martel, you've got a formal structure where you guys are there as well. Do you pass this on? Do you invite the unbelts to come in and apprentice to the actual warlord or the kingdom general? That's, as I understand, that's your terminology. So would you have like an unbelt sort of shadow you to see what you're doing?
I did have an adjutant that went to meetings with me and took notes with me. That was an AOA. But in the ideal situation, the general term is 2 years, and by the time you're in your second year, you should have a second in command who is probably going to be the pass the torch person, so they get to have at least a full year of observing how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And because our battles are often, year to year somewhat similar, so you get to see what kind of works. And the regional commanders ideally work the same way. A 2-year job, 1 year in, you have a second in command who becomes the next commander typically.
And it works pretty similar to what the Midrealm does, as far as bringing in people that just maybe want to look and see what's going on. We'll let the regionals will identify people like that, and I've told them, and they know they're allowed to bring somebody to like our meetings at an event just to observe, or even some of our meetings at Pensic. Not all of them, but some of them. They're allowed to come and observe. Not necessarily ask questions at that time or make comments, but at least observe. And then afterwards, I try and take a few minutes and see if they have questions.
So they come essentially as silent participants. That's the term we use at work. Silent participants.
Yeah. And then if they get up to regional or one of the lieutenant generals, it's a lot more personal. We'll talk more in person on what's going on, and if they're interested in the next level, what does that entail? But that's more of a one-on-one, or maybe a couple of people talking as a group.
All right, Barry, I got the tactical blog for you.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about where our last practice was, and we just really need the pictures, but you can see them right here. So slide that up. So yeah, so we had so we divided up teams, and by we, I didn't actually have a say in this. I was one of the knights there, so I certainly had some influence. We probably had, I don't know, out of this group, these numbers are actually pretty accurate. Out of this group, we probably had maybe 6 or 8 knights that were there. Most of us fighting. And so here we have the blue team and the red team. They decided ahead of time. We actually had a lot of a lot of archers to show up to this one, and they decided they're going to keep the archers on one team each battle. So the archers were all on a single team, and then they switched sides. And what was fascinating about this is, guess which side won every battle? It was the side without the archers.
Wow.
Yeah, well, because it was like, I think what ended up happening was, I don't want to say every battle, but I think what ended up happening is that, well, okay, there's a couple things going on. The other piece here is that Each team had a very short time to come up with their tactics, and we had brand new commanders each time. And I think what ended up happening was that we're like, all right, well, let's let all the archers do the killing. So the heavies just ended up running out there and kind of dying, right? Like you kind of forgot about fighting. And we know this, for example, as even as singles fighters, we might be like, oh, I was so focused on defense that I forgot to throw any shots, and the guy eventually hit me. So here's an example of kind of how things played out here. So in this case, both teams were like, they decided to sort of separate into 3 groups. Groups go out there. The groups are pretty good about like understanding, hey, I remember this one right here. Leave it on this one for a second, Brannos. So this one we talked about. So we kind of had 3 groups go out there, and I talked about the tactics a little bit about how each. So we have, I think it was about 15 or so on a side, plus the archers. And then we talk about each group sort of broke up into like groups of like 4 to 5 fighters. And then from there, we said, look, you have to decide once you engage, are you in an advantageous position to run? If you have 6 on 3, you're in an advantageous position, and you need to run them over quickly and then go find the rest of you guys on the field because somewhere else you got a deficit. If they're even, then we start to look at things like, we've got 6 shields and they've got 6 spears. Well, don't just stand there and get poked apart. But anyway, at the end of the day, what we sort of worked on here, and we've been doing this a lot in the East lately, is getting away from having a very defined tactic with a commander that everyone listens to, and we're trying to get into more chaotic situations with people figuring out what's happening and then responding to it. And ultimately, what we're looking for is not so much what we're really looking for is that the people that come to practice, let's be honest, this is our Southern region practice, and we had maybe 30 fighters there. And what do we say we bring Pelennor? Like 250 to Penzic?
Yeah, something like that.
The people at practice, we're relying on to be our sergeants at Penzic. They don't need to learn how to listen to commands. They need to learn how to make commands. And so that's what we're trying to teach them how to do. I'm getting some highlights down here. So this is my method of basically how to identify things. It still hasn't caught on yet. It's my flanks method. It's the I say flanks. Number 1, secure your flanks. Number 2, leg them and leave them. Number 3, assess which side has the range advantage and then plan accordingly. 4 is N, which stands for, never fight a fair fight. So you don't want to fight 4 knights versus 4 knights. You want to fight, 5 knights versus 4 knights, or 6 versus 2, or whatever it is. K is know who your killers are and know who your or who your support is. So if we're in a static battle, our spears are going to be killing, and the shields are there to keep them from dying, right? Keep them out of trouble. If we've got some sort of let's say mobile battle, and the other side's got 6 spears and 2 shields, and we've got 8 shields, well, we're going to run them down, and then the spears then have to follow the shields and do the supporting there. And then the S is spread out your talent. So if you have 5 knights, 5 GOAs, 5 new fighters, don't put the new fighters all into one unit. Don't put 5 spears into one unit. Have them sort of spread out through the unit. So anyway, I just want to talk a little bit about kind of some of the stuff we're working on. So with that, Pelennor, can we get into like maybe what is the focus of, you guys have sort of a philosophy you're working for in the Midrealm and your practices, what you're trying to get people to learn as they're coming to these practices?
Well, right now, coming off of COVID, it's learning the basics again, really. Last year showed that a lot of people just forgot what they were or just weren't doing them. So this year, it's a lot of the basics. Remember how to keep your line together. Remember how to how the shields can spread out to let their poles and spears work in there. How do you line up on a bridge? How do you line up on a bridge if there's combat archery and siege? It really is a difference. There a lot of those basic things really. And the other thing that I always try to get people to work on as far as commanders is personal initiative. If you know the plan and it blows up like it always does, if you see something that needs to be done, go do it. Don't ask for permission. Just go do it. Mm-hmm. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's a learning experience. Other things that we look at is and after the basics and things like that, it's a lot of the same things you're doing. How do you work together? If there's something specific or interesting that's going on at Penzic, how do you work that?
Yeah. I've got something that I've been doing. This is a cultural change we've had, and that's something else I actually want to ask you guys about is the specific cultures that your kingdoms have or your regions have. Our old culture was somebody comes in who's in charge. Everyone else needs to shut up and listen to that person. It's yeah. Now we have, for example, we have a culture of, we call it see something, say something. You're on the field, you see something, you say something.
But it means something different, I think.
Yeah. Yes, it does mean something different. That's probably where the phrase came from, and we're just adapting it poorly. Where was I going with that?
While you're thinking, I'm going to throw a question up because it's a good one.
Sorry, Barry, I didn't mean to derail you with that. It's just me.
No, that's okay. All right, hold on. So to that question, I had see something.
So it was being a commander. If you're seeing something, you want to say something. I think you were going to say you used to be, you follow the command structure. Right.
I remember now. So one of the things I'm big on now, and I think a lot of other people are as well. So for example, our last practice, we had like a lot of people were commanding for the first time. And we're talking about some people had been fighting for 2 years. So these were not seasoned people, and they were told, "You're the commander." They're like, "Oh my God, I got to figure this out," And it's tough, but you have to do this as a veteran fighter to sit back and let them fail. I'm very big on letting them fail, and that's not to say they'll always fail, but sometimes they do. We had a practice. I don't want to call this person out, but I had a practice a while ago. Try to make it generic enough, but the commander came up with what I thought was just the exact wrong thing to do. And we did it once. It didn't work. The commander made a change. I knew that was not the right change, but we did that one. It didn't work. And we went about 3 times through. And then one of our unbelts, not quite GOA level, had basically stepped up and said, "Hey, everywhere we go, you're relying on our flanking unit to do all the killing. And everywhere we go, we're outnumbered. Your unit has to be the one that does the killing, and we're going to slow down the things on the flank." And the commander listened to that. And it was nice that the commander had the chance to try things out, was not made to feel dumb about it. And I hope I'm not making him feel dumb right now if he's listening. And then an unbelt came up with a plan. They implemented the plan. And it was amazing how we were getting slaughtered. And we turned it around in like the second to last battle. We fought to they had 3 people left and we were all dead. And then the last one, I think we actually won. But I'm very big on that. Like, let them, like in a company, let them run their departments, and then you come in and you mend fences. But give them a chance to figure it out on their own. Answer the question.
Let's answer this question right here real quick. And then, if you have anything more, I'd like to go ahead and let Martel try to get back to his practice a little bit. And because he covered a lot of great stuff, but I'm sure you got a couple more questions for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sir Barry, how do you keep track of scenario layouts, maneuvering for later? I have this gift of remembering unimportant things and forgetting all the important things in my life. Most of it's from memory. A lot of practices, I'm lucky enough. We almost always do a group picture. So that gives me an idea of, I can go through the group picture and be like, okay, this is how many spear. I know they fight spear. This is how many spears we had. This is how many, fighters we had total. So I can do that stuff. But usually I just kind of do it from memory. Sometimes we'll be lucky enough. I know our last practice we had somebody took some drone footage, not a lot of drone footage, but just enough that I was like, oh, that one battle played out like this. And then I sort of make that into my blog. So that's in a nutshell.
Drone footage is the future.
Yeah, I wish we had more of it. Let's see. Okay, here's one. We've talked about this, our local practices. So we've had some people, every practice we try to have we call it a post-mortem, which is everyone gets their feedback. Everyone gets 1 minute to say what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. And we let everyone go through that. Really like that. So I guess the one question is, do you guys do something like that? And the second one is, one of the big feedbacks we have is that people would like the practice to be more organized. And some people have even suggested we give an itinerary ahead of time. And we've been telling them, we don't know who's going to show up. I mean, we could do that if people were better about saying when they're going to be there, what battles they're going to fight, when they're going to get their armor on, and when they're going to decide that they're too tired to fight anymore. So to Pellinor, that question to you.
We try to do, after regional practices, we try to do, sometimes we call it roses and thorns. What went right? We go around. If we don't have a huge number, we'll try and go around the circle. If we just have the commanders, and they give out something that went right and something that went wrong, and just go right on around their circle. And I start the discussion by saying, bring out facts and leave your ego on the other hay bale on the other side of the field. We don't point fingers. We just state facts one way or the other. And if there's a discussion, we have a discussion, but we go around and do that. And even after Penzik, we'll do that with our commanders. We'll go over each battle and do the same thing.
Oh, nice. And Martel?
We do roses and thorns is a good way to do it. At our smaller practices, we do what's called one up, one down, and you go around the circle and you say one good thing, one thing to work on for each fighter. But as far as the melees, when we do Sable Soldier or when we do regional practices, typically we'll do a big fight and then we'll stop, and while everyone's drinking water, that'll be when we do a post-mortem and say, here's what I think happened, here's what I think. I know we're going to do this scenario again. Maybe think about the fact that as attackers you have unlimited res and not be so conservative with your attack. That kind of thing. And give pointers to those commanders so that they can go back and then run the same scenario and run it with that new piece of information.
That's that's nice. And then what was the other one I had here? Do you guys do anything like warming up as a group or any kind of bonding exercises? Anything like that? I know that one of our regions likes to do singles. They'll start off with single sword warm-ups, like go pick a person and go do single sword, and then they kind of go into a drill, and then they go into melee. In the southern region, we typically, if 4 people are in armor ready to go, we do a 4-person drill. If 20 people in armor ready to go, we might say, hey, this is our chance to do a bridge battle, because we can't do a bridge battle with 4 people. And how often do we have 20 people,
Nice.
Martel, do you guys do anything like that? Do you guys do any warm-ups or?
I mean, like I said, when you get a whole bunch of fighters together, the first thing I always want to do is a field battle, because we don't have to talk about it. We get people just want to start swinging. They don't want to hear you explain rules or talk about a scenario. And so that's our usual melee warm-up.
Okay. Pellinor?
Usually people end up doing some singles first, but it's not really a stated thing. And then a lot of times, we'll do the fields first. Either the fields, or if they had to build something complicated or where off to the side, we might go do that first.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things I'm big on is, not so much how you start the day, but once we get maybe halfway or 2/3 of the way through the day, or anything, maybe even a third of the way, if we have, let's say, a rough start, and I try to always get a pulse of how people are feeling about practice. I had one practice where we were doing 2-on-1s, and it was all new people, and we're doing a lot of explaining, which meant that a lot of people were standing there watching. And I had to do a pulse check. It's like, are you guys bored and do you want to fight, or do you like this? And turns out everyone liked it because they were learning. They're like, oh, I get to watch these 2 people, and now I'm learning. And so that was great for them. If you did that with a whole bunch of GOAs, I think they would really not like that, because they're just standing there. They already know how to do this. They don't see the point. So we do a little bit of that. And then one of the things I try to do is that, let's say if we get a rough start, is then go right into a resurrection battle. Because we've done enough resurrection battles. As long as you don't get too tricky with it, just do something basic. That people are going to be done after whatever time period, 10 or 15 minutes, and they're going to really blow themselves out, and they're going to have gotten a lot of kills, got hit many times, got to make a lot of command decisions, all the things they kind of like to do. Do you guys have any sort of strategies Yeah, it's a good. I guess Pellinor first. Do you have any like strategies to handle things like that, or is that ever an issue?
I, I'll do the same thing. I'll be watching a practice going on, and if there's something that goes on, say how to put your group together on a bridge. I'm just using that as an example, or how to do a kill pocket on the end of a bridge. If it doesn't look like they know what they're doing, I'll stop, and we'll have an impromptu class right there. This is how it actually works. This is how you want to do it. So do something similar to that. I haven't really run into where I've had to do a morale check basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually when I see that, we'll move on to the next thing, or we'll stop, let everybody get a drink of water, and then we'll move on to the next thing, whether it be bridges or fields or whatever.
Yeah. I had one day, this is actually the mercenary group, where we had some bad rules and some people were getting really thick. I think there was, I think we had like some steel fighters in there, not saying that steel fighters are thick, but this particular person wasn't understanding the calibration and people were starting to lose tempers. And then the very next scenario, we said, okay, unlimited resurrection battle, no objectives. Just to get people to like, look, go out, fight, and have fun, and then we'll do something after that. Martel, any strategies, any things you've run into?
Don't really run into that, but like I kind of watch our practices really close, and I don't want to push people to exhaustion or into boredom, and so we run a lot of different drills, and so I wouldn't say I necessarily have a set strategy. I just try and keep it interesting, and roll with what I think is going to fit that group of fighters. What's going to have them have more fun and also learn something.
Well, real quick, do you focus on, do you tell them what to do, meaning in terms of tactics, and then have them go implement it? Or do you say, hey, this side versus this side, figure out your strategy and then go?
Typically at a regional practice, it is not a super experienced commander. And so oftentimes we'll split up, and then I encourage my centurions and my knights and my other commanders to give that person, like at the last regional practice, the guy had just come from Gulf War, and it was lining up a good, strong shield wall. And one of our knights was like, hey, man, there's no archery. We don't need to line up that tight in this formation. And he was like, oh, man, they don't have archery. And it was just like a mind-opening thing for him. But like he knew that, but in the clutch, sometimes they get nervous enough that you got to give them a little bit of advice to prompt what they're doing. And so you were saying earlier how like you want to let them make their mistakes, but I also don't like to just throw people in the deep end with no advice. And so no, I don't give them direct advice, but I definitely give pointers so they're not floundering in their first commands.
Yeah, typically what we've done, now again, it's going to depend on the fight. Like I can understand, like if you had something really bad, like, oh my God, this is going to be a slaughter, give a little bit of advice. Typically what we've done is we'll run a scenario, whatever that scenario is, run it, and then we'll let, at least the first pass, let both sides go back and sort of see if they can figure it out on their own. And usually we have enough really experienced melee knights, or they might even be GOAs that are the people have like strong tactical background and the experience. We usually figure they're going to figure out what their mistakes were, or at least the losing side. And then we try to let them do it a couple times. And then after that, we might stop and say, okay, this is what I'm observing. That last one, the time we gave you a 10-second countdown, and then we counted down, and you had all the shields and you never charged those spears. Go back and do it again. But we never try to say like, okay, this time this is what you're doing. We try to let them sort of do it all on their own. Yeah. Pellinor?
I do a lot very similar to what Martel does. Because I really want to see what the commanders, how they're doing, what they're doing. I want to see how they're progressing in their learning. There are times where, not a lot, but there are times where I will tell one side what to do, specifically so I can see what the commander on the other side is going to do against that, or what they will learn from that. But I don't do that very often.
So we have two questions, one from Brannos and one from me. But first, Martel, I know that the King of Palantir is there and that you're hoping to fight him. It's 9 o'clock. We said we wouldn't keep you too late. Do you have to go shortly to go fight?
I can keep talking. We're fine.
Okay, cool beans. So thank you. I will ask Brannos' question first. And the question is, Martel, do you have any other drills or battles that you've taken from foam groups?
Yeah, there's it's called we called it the advanced retreat drill. We learned it on at a park that had a tennis court with the big fences, and you line up your sides evenly, and then start at one side, and when you get killed, you just step back and wait a 5 count, and then you're back in the fight. And the idea is that one side is going to retreat all the way until they hit the fence, take a breather, talk about what happened, and then the other side. And the idea is you want to teach your guys to do a fighting retreat and a fighting advance while maintaining unit cohesion, because a lot of battles, you can either give lives or you can give ground. And if you give ground slowly enough, your forces that have a numerical advantage on another front can come save you. And it's a good way to end practice, because you just run it back and forth several times and just burn up all the gas.
I really like
the other one I do a lot, my 3-man drill is called Monkey in the Middle. And it's a 2-on-1 with as big an open space as you can to simulate the end of a field battle where the lines are gone and you got to maintain field awareness. And so you want to, as if you're the one fighter, you want to try and get the other 2 guys lined up, or get a situational moment where you can strike while the other person is hesitating, waiting for that other person to come up. And so you'll be surprised how well a squirrely fighter can win versus 2 guys. And then you're also teaching 2 guys to learn to take advantage of, I've got his sword tied up, just go ham, dude. Just wail on him. Yeah, that's the 2 big ones I took from foam.
Okay. So my question is, and this will be for both you and Pellinor. Earlier, Pel, you were talking about how you have the command structure and you're trying to learn from the battles. And you said right now one of the things that you've learned is that people have kind of forgotten how to do melee. That was one of the big things you said. But I know that you've been in the command structure for the Middle Kingdom in the past. And Martel, I'm going to assume, although I'm not certain, that you have been coming up through the command structure and possibly have been Kingdom General in the past.
This is my first time as General, but I've done everything else.
Okay. So I'm curious, both from this year, but also from years past, is there something that you hear over and over again that we can tell our viewers, oh my God, every year we get together and we say, blah, 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 and nobody ever listens to us? We used to say a lot, like them and leave them, but I don't hear people saying that so much anymore, and I don't know why, but we say that all the time. So is there something that you hear or heard that our viewers can take away and go, you know what, the generals say this all the time, hear this all the time, and nobody listens?
Bess, if you're on our team at Penzic, I'm going to come up behind you in the woods battle and say leg him and leave him over and over and over again.
I will say Eldon is fighting wood this year, Barry.
Okay.
So, Pel, what have you got for that one? Have you got
leg him and leave him and move forward. Keep moving forward.
So,
When a lot of times in the field battles, people will stop and want to fight, when really you just need to keep pressing forward.
Yeah.
Forward.
Martel?
I didn't realize that leg 'em and leave 'em had gotten out of fashion.
Up here. I will say it's up here, maybe not everywhere.
By the way, Bess just got legged.
Yeah, but I'm on my feet now, man.
There you go.
I don't know. I can't really think of anything where that we yell a whole bunch like that.
Well, that's good then. So there's nothing that you can say that you've heard from, command years past. Maybe there's something that's Ansteorra specific, like we say, do the maneuver, and people don't do the maneuver. They do like the maneuver that sounds like the maneuver, something like that.
Not especially. Like we've been doing. We did lose some of our momentum from COVID, but we've been doing a lot of work to spread. Like Ansteorra in the past was a kingdom of heroes, not not an army that was working together.
Mm-hmm.
And we are working hard to have more tactics and have more unified battle theory.
Cool.
Nice. I'll tell you from up here, the biggest things I'm trying to push on right now is, and I don't know if you guys have problems with this, fallback. We're really bad with fallback. I'm trying to figure out. I saw Pellinor make a little check. I don't know if that's like, yes, the East is really bad with fallback, or if that meant that, yeah.
I think there's a lot of people. I really liked what Martel was talking about, the fallback maneuver or the practice, because a lot of groups don't practice that and will kind of break up or allow spears to take advantage of people that are falling back. So I really liked what Martel was talking about.
Me too.
Yeah,
I do not want my army to stand and die. I want them to stay alive.
Yeah, we had one. So 100 Minutes War, and for people that don't know 100 Minutes War that are listening, it's basically the Penzix Woods battle. It's instead of a 90 minutes resurrection battle, it's 100 minutes, and the difference is that we actually count kills. It's usually right before Thanksgiving. So Martel, actually, you probably haven't heard of it. It's in New Jersey. It is 100. Actually, okay. It's interesting enough. I'll take a minute to talk about it. We start off with a captain's tourney that is a single elimination tourney for unbelts only. So this is one of the few things that can really highlight, like if you're trying to like really get noticed, if you can make it through this captain's tourney, the top two, the winner becomes the winner of the captain's tourney, and then the top two become the captains, and then they pick teams. And then those two teams, it's a 100-minute resurrection battle. At 50 minutes, we switch sides, and then it's and it's weather's usually pretty awesome. It's usually pretty cold, but like not freezing. It's right before Thanksgiving.
So where and when is this at?
It's in Sparta, New Jersey. So that should be easy to remember. Sparta. And it's it's a nice event. It's a really nice event. And anyway, so the thing is, you're counting kills, okay? And as everyone on this call understands, that in a resurrection battle, there's a disadvantage to being far away from your res point and closer to theirs. And we had one section last year that was like a little bit of a choke point, and we knew that our opponents, we had a lot of the Canadians have really good spears. If you ever hear anyone at Penzix speaking French, stay away from those guys. They got really good spears. And so we realized.
I'll find Gaijin.
What's that?
They can talk to each other in French and nobody knows what they're saying.
Yes.
French.
But anyway, so we realized that our tactic of, especially, we had like a lot of good spears on our side. We're like, okay, let's check our egos at the door. We can't beat their spears. So we need to start doing charges at their spears, running them down, a nice little pulse charge or something, pull back. And we're having a hard time getting people to reform and pull back to the choke point. And someone even said, no, we have to hold ground, or whatever, keep ground. They wouldn't say hold. We have to keep ground. They were like, no, that doesn't work in this. It's not a field battle. There's not a flag we're trying to get. This is we're counting kills. So our fallback commands, that's something I'm going to start working on, is the fallback. Pulse charge is another tough thing. I'm of the opinion, why bother unless you've got a household that really knows how to do these things? It's just so hard to teach. It takes a lot of time. I don't know how successful you guys are. I read Martel's, the document you sent to me, and pulse charging was in there.
It's situationally effective. And like especially if the opponent has done is not organized and they've got their good shield wall, and their spears come out front, but there's no gaps for them to retreat.
Ah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A pulse charge is great because their spears are trapped in no man's land. So I want it in my arsenal, but I don't use it every battle.
Yeah, I just find it really hard to teach. Eleanor?
I think for us, it depends on the groups that actually practice it a lot. Some do and some don't. So and like Martel said, it's situational. So the commander has to really see when it's going to be appropriate. But I see it from certain groups that do practice it, and not necessarily like newer groups, that type of thing.
Okay.
Real quick
Well, hey,
question out there. Here's another question for Bess this time. Let's see where it was. There we go.
No, the SCA does not have a battle. So Eldemir does not have a battle with Montreal, the East Kingdom. But here in Canada, there might be a little French-English thing going on.
Good job. Real quick, Barry, do you have any last things for Martel? I think we wanted to cover a little bit on fencing as well, and I think Bess had a couple of words there, and we're winding down to about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so yeah, Martel, just honestly, anything you think is missed, anything you want to send is like sort of a big picture idea for anyone listening to walk away with, regarding training people for melee. Like what's your hot button thing you've just been wanting to tell the world, and here you have the world's ear.
If you ever find yourself in command, the simplest way to do it is you walk up to the enemy line, and do you have pole weapon superiority? If yes, do nothing. If no, do something clever. and that's commanding 101.
Yeah.
Very nice. That is in my flanks thing. What did I say again? It was assess which side has the range advantage.
Yeah, I like that I like to hit on that.
Yeah. So we wanted to cover a little bit about fencing. And again, I think this is largely so far has historically been an armored centric a podcast here.
Martel, we're going to let you go.
See you, Martel.
All right, thank you, guys.
I'm fighting the king.
I will.
All right. Say hi from the show. All right.
Yeah. So I would say so. We have some fencing questions here. So to Pellinor, can you give us some big talking points here about how you address fencing at Pennsic or any other wars you might go to?
Tell you the truth, I let my Lieutenant General Cole do it. He's.
What would he say if he was here?
The first thing I want to say is I've been fencing for quite a while and melee fencing, and the quality of command and control and the different armies, not just ours but other ones across the SCA. I think their command and control and how they fight in battles has gotten way better than say 15 years ago. There's a lot more strategy going on, a lot more plans, as opposed to just going out in a line and fighting the guy across from you. Where I found that when they did that, I could just walk around the end of the line and go after the commanders at one time. Now it's not that easy. I think that our commanders are doing a lot better job of just making strategies, looking at different scenarios and how to beat them, just like we do in armored. If you haven't fought in a rapier melee, it's definitely different than armored. For one thing, you can't just crash into the other side.
Sorry.
There, no problem. Different weapons, different lengths, things like that. So I really like what's been going on in the last bunch of years. And there are people in the rapier community that are just passionate about melee, just like we are, that prefer it. I don't think I'm answering quite what you were asking for, but that's my off the cuff passionate answer about melee rapier.
You think spears are going to make a big difference this year?
I Will they make a big difference? We'll see. It's going to be interesting. This is going to be the first time spears are in that big of a battle, and they've been put to like a third of the battle or something in specific sections. And I am very interested to see in how people react to longer fighting times, being hotter, maybe getting frustrated, and how are people going to react to that with the spear? I don't want. I hope people react well. I hope people don't get frustrated. I hope people are playing nicely with each other with rapier spears. I personally like fighting with them. I am authorized with one in rapier, so I don't want to see it go away either.
Yeah, I find it interesting. Again, I've not fought with them, but both of us have fought a lot with spear in our time. That's probably your primary melee weapon, right? It is mine. Yeah, it's my primary melee weapon. And generally speaking, the counter to the spear is either archery or a charge. And I don't think rapier has either, do they?
The only archery that rapier has is rubber band guns, RBGs.
Yeah.
And that's you don't see that very often in a fight.
Yeah.
In a melee.
And then they can't charge. They can't just run you down. So,
right.
No.
Right.
Yeah. So that's it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting experiment, and I'm assuming the experiments happened in other parts of the known world.
So with spears, one of the ways to kill or not kill a spear, but almost disable them, hit them in the hand. In armored, we can't hit in the hands, but in rapier you can. So if I'm out there like this, holding my spear, if anybody just touches my hand, I can't use it. So then you're a one-armed spearman.
Interesting.
So I just want to jump in for a sec. So Pellinor told you guys that he's been fighting for a long time, and he's seen from a command level a change in the command structure. That the command that he's seen for the fencing field has really evolved. Last year was my first melee, so you've got the extremes going on. One of the things I noticed about the fencers, and I'm going to say it was Penzik. It was my first melee. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just one of those damn things. But I'm going to give you my point of view. It did seem one of the things the fighters know, for example, we'll talk about spears, is we say things like give the spears room to move so that we don't all crush up against the spears, because one of the ways a spear defends themselves is they'll take a step back. They'll take a step forward and then, oh, look at me, darn, I don't want to die. I take a step back. It's been my experience and what I saw at Penzik last year during the fencing battles with the front lines. One of the ways to defend against fencing or like a thrust is to take a step back or to be out of range, much like the spears were on the fighting side. But everybody really wants to fence. Everybody wants to fight. I'm going to use the generic term fight. So everybody wanted to fight, and they were so close to the fencers in front of them that they were essentially getting the fighters in front of them killed, the fencers in front of them killed, because the fencers had nowhere to move, to dodge, to bob, or to weave. And then, so the front line would pretty much die, and then the next line would step forward, and it would happen over and over again. One of the things I was trying to do was to give the front line a little bit of room. And again, this is my experience. It could have just been one of those damn things. But I would encourage people fencers from all kingdom, anybody watching this, not just the principals, people who are running the battles, but if you are running, practices at home and you're doing your melee practices at home, to watch and see possibly what the fighters are doing and see what you can steal from them and incorporate onto the fencing field. Because I did see things that I was surprised the fencers weren't doing. Like, I back up, I see the fencers backing up, but we're so close. But it's routine for fighters to say, give the guys room to move, give the spears room to fight. So I would just encourage you to do that. The other thing I would say is, everybody gets so anxious to fight that they try to, they were all kind of side by side, and of course you can't really move. You can't go on the diagonals if you're all closed in like that. And on the fighting field, we are accustomed to having a bit of space in between us so that we kind of have a shifting or a waving front line almost. And I would encourage people who are fencing at home perhaps to try to have a front line that's maybe not so packed in, because look, if I miss this finger, I'm going to hit this finger, except not, because I'm not really good at looking myself in the camera, but you know what I'm trying to say. I'm really bad with that. So, but these are the sorts of things that we practice, and leaving a little bit of space and room for people to move so that you're not all jammed in cheek by jowl. So that is one thing that I can say to everybody when you're at home, or if you're in the front line. Fighting is fun. Fighting and winning is more fun. So I got that one for you.
One comment I want to make here for running practices in general, for scenarios is one of the issues that I've noticed that a lot of people have when they try to run practices or events is that everybody wants to be the dungeon master. I have my Dungeon Dragon shirt on right here. So everybody wants to think, like, especially when they're new at it, they're like, oh, now's my time. Oh, am I going to come up with something really fun and interesting that everyone's going to love? And the suggestion I give is 80% of what you do, stick with what you already know is going to work, because the risk is if it works, everybody's going to have a good time. It might not be the most interesting thing they've ever done, but they're going to have a good time. The risk, if you really try a whole lot of new things and they don't work, people might be like, wow, I drove 2 hours for this. And man, if you do that 2 months in a row or 2 practices in a row, you could lose a lot of people. We had a practice again that I helped someone run in Atlantia, just over the border. And I remember one of the things she wanted to do was a kill the king battle. And again, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, we didn't have any real kings there. King Charles was not there. And we didn't have any SCA kings there either. No offense to the SCA kings. But we had, basically one side would pick a person that was the quote unquote king, and you would fight an unlimited resurrection battle until you killed that person. And it was a secret king, so you didn't know who it was. And I kind of thought that was not really going to be a good idea, but it was the one thing that she did was a little bit like out of the ordinary. And it turned out to actually be a pretty good battle, because what I found that really worked with that was it really fostered communication, because people had to start going, well, I've killed this person. Is it Brannos? No, I've already killed Brannos. It can't be him. Oh, I think it's Pellinor. No, I saw Pellinor die already. What about Bess? Well, Bess hasn't died yet. Let's go after her now. So I actually thought it turned out to be a pretty good thing, and everyone enjoyed it. And that's how you come up with new ideas that work, is by trying these new things. But I really think you have to keep them down to like 20% of the time. So that's one thought I had there. So with that, Pellinor, any big lessons, big thoughts, anything that you would like to just, if you had a squire that was, that was under your wing and you're going to teach them how to run practices in the future, like what's the one big thing you would tell them?
Make sure people are having fun. That's a big one. Just like it was stated earlier, work the basics and bring in advanced material. If you can bring in somebody from outside to do teaching, that's you can't always do it because of travel time and stuff. But if you can do that, that's a huge thing. If people don't get certain training, bring somebody in and to help out. Try out new things, like what you said. I think one thing that I did was to have people practice blocking for a spear with their shield. I did 2-on-2s. One person had to have a spear and one person had to have a shield. And you didn't just send the shield in to run down the other two. They had to stay together fairly well. And they had to communicate on how they were moving around and what they had to do. So the biggest thing for me is see what, well, and somebody needs to look at who is normally coming to practice. What kind of training do they need? How can you tailor it to what the people that are coming need?
So on your spear, running down the spear drill, I do that. I haven't done it in a while, but I do that with a 2-on-1. So you have a spear and a shield versus a shield. And with that, you might. I sometimes if the shield on the 2 team is too good, you might have to give them some special rules or something like, only leg shots work, or you have to get 3 hits, or just tell the person on the side, hey, like when dad is playing with his son, like kind of, give him just enough of a challenge. But yeah, I found some really good stuff with that, where basically the shield on the 2 team learns that their job is not to kill, their job is to protect their spear. And the 2 of them work together, and then the spear is trying to figure out how to stay alive, while running away from the opponent, but also staying in the fight.
Right.
So that's one that I've gotten a lot of good success with. And again, if you have a regional practice and you have 8 people show up, and you're looking for things to work on. What do we have down here? Hold on.
That was for either you or Brannos for wrapping things up.
Okay, got it. Bess, what do you have? Do you have anything you want to add? Big picture stuff. You've been to melee practices before, right?
1 or 2.
Okay.
One of the things I would like to encourage for people at their local practices, it is, as we've said, it's truly important for people to get used to command structure, or learn to give any commands. So even when you've got a really small practice, if you have newer fighters there, to say to them, what do you think we should do? Often when I ask them, they're shy because I'm a knight and they don't want to tell a knight what to do. So I will give them ideas. Well, we could go this way. And I don't try to use like, we could flank them and then roll them deep. And I just go, well, we could go this way and hit them on the side, or we could go this way or hit them on the side, or we could go straight. We could try all kinds of things. And I encourage the people to make a decision, any decision, because that's really what we're looking for. And then, they say, well, how about this? I go, well, I think that's a great idea. Let's just see what happens. Because sometimes you just got to try something and see what happens. You don't know. Maybe it'll work, and then you can talk about it afterwards. Okay, let's talk about what happened. And that's part of the debrief that we discussed earlier. You can debrief at a mega kingdom level. You can debrief at a household level, or you can debrief with 5 people at a practice after a round where someone's been the commander for the very first time.
Yeah. I want to throw onto that. We got a few minutes left here. A transformative piece of advice my baby brother gave me once. He went to college and studied the trombone, and I actually played a little bit of trombone, so I understood this. But he said that he asked his instructor once something about and I'm going to cover this one right here, Brannos. Exactly your comment there. Something about slide technique. How do you hold a slide? How do you move it up and down? Like you've been playing the notes, but there's different ways to hold it. And his instructor just told him, he's like, oh, there's lots of different philosophies. He gave him like 5 different philosophies, and it just didn't really sit with my brother. And it took him years to realize. He said, there's 5 different ways to do it. They're all right, but you have to pick one, because if you don't have a method or a system, then you don't have a way to evaluate why you're not doing it right. And I think that the same thing with, if you don't make a decision, then why did you lose? Well, we didn't make a decision. And if you never make a decision, that's always why you lose. But at least you say, we're going to charge the right flank. You can charge the right flank and lose. And now you have a basis for why your decision didn't work. Did you not implement it correctly? Or was it the wrong decision? Now you need to try something else. But if you don't make a decision, you have no framework to decide, what you've done. And I think this applies to singles too. Are you using A-frame, or are you using hanging guard?
Oh, even bigger than that. If you're not the person that's essentially, if you're the person that's constantly indecisive, then you're wasting time. And that time is important, because your opponent will take advantage of that time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's that whole big picture too. Looks like we're out of time here. So we had some wrap up things. We had Brannos, our producer behind the scenes, who's on screen right now.
Most of the time. I tried to stay behind the scenes. It's super hard, by the way. I have I've lived melee for 30 years. I was war general here for like 5+. And, you know, I was lucky enough to be the one to really kick off the way our structure works now. And then, of course, I command one of our rogue legions of the Midrealm, which is Legio Draconis. So, you know, it's been fun. It's so nice listening to others. Martel was I love some of the things he talked about. I look forward to actually hearing some of the other commanders. There's really some good stuff that came out of that. Pelly, it's always good listening to you, but we get to talk all the time. So, you know, I mentioned in the notes here that I liked some of the foam battle ideas Martel came up with because they add some variety to practice. And that variety sometimes is really fun for other people. They get used to doing the same thing over and over again. You know, episode on different melee battles. What are all the melee battles? What are all the different types you can do? And hopefully you maybe it's a question that we could ask more of the commanders as they come on into Kingdoms, Bari, is like, what kind of melee battles do you do that's different than the normal ones, and why? Right? Because I think that might help a lot of other people learn how to, you know, just like you guys and us, the whole idea of a retreating battle and learning how to actually fight a retreating battle or a deny is really important, but hard to do. And I think you have to make people believe they can do it before they can do it. So I think it was a great question. It would be awesome to hear more of those.
So, Brannos, as producer, can you tell us what next week's episode is going to be?
Well, next week.
It's written right here, Bess. What are you talking about?
I know.
All right. Well, next week's episode, and I just have to make sure it's all lined up. But Duke Sean, Duke Thorfinn, Duchess Helga, Lord Daniel the Blind are all going to come back on and talk about kind of a rehash of how to go through video again, the video review series that they did a while ago through COVID, and which was incredibly successful, especially for the people that were on it, because I think there were 2 or 3 of those people that got knighted shortly after COVID let up. And I think that idea of allowing other people to help you and review the things you're doing and help you understand how to review yourself so you can see the things that and the places you're making problems, there's a real benefit to becoming a better fighter. And so this is hopefully, you know, this is one of these things that probably should be done every few years so that people have a chance to understand that better. And as a coach or a trainer, if you don't understand it, you better get to this episode, because it's the way the new world acts right now. So, you know, definitely don't miss next week's episode.
So as a reminder, Coach's Corner is on Wednesday nights. This isn't an anomaly. We're on every other week, unless, like tonight, it's a special episode. And then it's, you know, we'll give you that in advance. It is a long weekend in the States, so please drive safely. Make sure you're not driving under the influence of anything, because we desperately want you here to fight with you, either in melee, yay, or in singles.
Yeah.
We do want you here, so please have a great long weekend.
All right. Well, thank you, Bari, for putting the episode together. I love these. I look forward to some more. And thanks, everybody, for coming out and watching. And please come to the Coach's Corner discussion page and leave some stuff out there. If you have questions, put it out there. Everyone have a wonderful night. Stay safe.
Have a good night.